Welcome to 360 Money Matters, where financial planners Billy and Andrew talk all things financial planning. This podcast aims to increase your knowledge and confidence with all things money. Each week, they will cover topics like wealth creation strategies, investment principles, creating passive income, paying off your debt faster, and much, much more, so you can live a life on your terms without limits.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the 360 Money Matters podcast. I am Billy and I'm joined by my co-host,
Andrew. Morning, Bills. How are you today? Back again for another podcast.
Doing well, Andrew, and excited about today's one because it's talking to, I guess, our younger audience.
Actually, come to think of it, the episode we did last week was talking to the older demographic. The episode we're doing this week is talking to the younger demographic.
There is method to the madness, my friend.
Is there, or did it just happen? You'll never know.
We'll keep that as a secret between the two of us. So anyway, enough joking around and enough bantering. What are we talking about today?
Yeah, so today what we're discussing is really the importance of starting your financial planning journey sooner rather than later. So why you should see a financial advisor or receive financial advice when you're young.
Yeah. And I guess it goes even further. So we're talking specifically about, I guess, receiving advice and engaging with a financial planner. But it's, I guess, the concept and the theory as well, too, that you should be paying attention to money management, the things that make up our world, really as early as you possibly can. And what are some of the benefits associated with that? And where does the professionals like us jump in and help and offer support? And what's the resulting outcome over, a lifetime of a career in, whatever vocation you end up doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. So where do we start?
Where do we start? I mean, look, I think for me, the analogy that I like to use when you're talking about, and we say seeing a financial advisor, but in some instances that doesn't mean, actually going down the route of receiving ongoing management or ongoing advice. For some people, it's just receiving a one-off piece to start you off. For other people, it's being able to, research and do all of this on their own and build a base on their own. But it's really starting your financial journey sooner rather than later. And sorry, I digress, but the analogy that I like to use is imagine that you need to run a marathon. What's going to yield the greatest results? Starting early, training for it and doing all of the right things early, or waiting until the last minute and trying to, get yourself up to scratch right at the very end. It's not to say that you can't run a marathon by doing it all at the very end, but your odds of actually completing it and doing it are far greater the earlier that you start. Exactly the same thing in your financial planning journey and your wealth creation journey. The earlier that you start, the earlier that you do it, the more time that you've got to, plan ahead, to achieve the outcomes that you want to and ultimately, result in financial freedom. Yeah.
And having young children, because I often think about this in sort of a different light, maybe not necessarily the marathon, because I don't think I could run a marathon even if I did train for it. But so what habits can I get the kids into, or what habits can I demonstrate? Hopefully they're all positive and none of the negative ones come across. But what are the habits that we can get into and get into them early? Take something as simple as moving your body every day, or eating healthy. The same concept applies from a financial planning perspective. Is the sooner that you can adopt those healthier money habits, get an understanding of sort of the basic concepts around money management, budgeting, credit, and so on. I think it really sets you up for a life of, less of an issue when it comes to financial planning, because you are well informed. And if you get yourself into the right habits early, then hopefully that carries through just like it would with something as simple as, moving your body daily or something like that.
Exactly right. So, when especially, and I like to utilize, investing is one of it, and investing on a regular basis, but the other aspect, and I think the key aspect and foundation of any good wealth management is budgeting, cash flow management, and all of that stuff. And if you can get into good habits with that earlier on, rather than realizing that, hey, I'm not really good with this and I need to do something in order to fix an issue. The earlier that you can get on top of it, the earlier that you can form those good habits, the better off that you're going to be throughout your lifetime of wealth creation.
Yeah. I might use an example of this because over the summer break, we actually caught up with our nephews that live interstate, and hopefully they're watching and listening to this, so shout out to them. But what we were talking about is they're still young enough where they're obviously living at home. So we were talking about, and one of them's got a full-time job, the rest of them are doing part-time work, but we were talking about taking your income, regardless of what that is, and then identifying a percentage that you should be putting aside.
Yeah.
And I was discussing about, while your expenses are low, that percentage should be higher. But if you manage to develop that into a habit and say, okay, when I get paid, even if I am working part-time at the local Macca's or Woolworths or whatever it may be, when I am working, I know that I need to put away 20%. In their case, it was higher because they're living at home. But if you can then do that as you progress through your career, just something simple like that will go a really long way in terms of your money management, as opposed to maybe not learning that and then, I don't know, maybe getting a credit card, going through all of that, getting yourself into debt, and then running into some trouble, learning that mistake, getting out of that. You've maybe lost 3, 4, 5, 6 years of good money habit years where you can form that habit that will carry you through for life.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, it's one of those things, and one of the questions I often get asked when we start talking about this is, I'm young, I've got a small amount of money to invest. Even if I achieve a great rate of return, it doesn't really amount to much in absolute dollar values. What's the point?
Yep.
What's the point? And the thing that I like to sort of throw out and use an example when you're talking about this is, yes, you might be young. Yes, you might only be investing a small amount. And so whether you achieve a rate of return of, 7% or 10%, it's not going to ultimately, make any dramatic changes to your life. You might only be talking about the difference of a few $100s at the end of it.
Yeah.
But what it will do is build those money habits, build the habit of putting money towards investments, understand how investments work, whether you're investing in, managed funds, whether you're investing in shares, whether you're putting money towards term deposits, whatever it is, you're getting an understanding of how all of this works, and you're forming good habits so that when the time comes to not put, $5,000 or $10,000 towards an investment, to put $100,000 or $200,000 towards an investment, it's not the instance of, I don't know how this works, I don't know what's happening, I don't feel comfortable with it, and you need to start small at a later stage to build up to that in order to pass the sleep test. You're doing that progressively, and you're doing that over a period of time. So you're forming a knowledge base when you do it, because it's one thing to read about it and listen about it and all of that stuff, and it's another thing to actually put it into action and do it yourself. And at the same time, you're also, building good money habits by putting money away on a regular basis, and not just putting money away, but investing and doing things with it as well.
Yeah. And I would say, just based on experience and what I've observed in terms of being a financial advisor, I would say that the habitual part of it and learning those skills is actually more important than how much you earn.
Yeah.
And, I talk about it all the time, but if you earn, $60,000 and you can save 10% of your income, we'll talk gross numbers, but that's $6,000. Or if I earn twice as much, 120, but I spend all of it, you're actually better off than I am.
Yeah, exactly right.
So if you can get those habits early, and assuming that over time your skill set gets more valuable, what you can offer the employment market, your remuneration increases. If you've got the right skills and the right habits and the right exposure to, say, things like investing and risk tolerance and asset allocation, you feel a lot more comfortable with it when you do get into that position where the amount that you're putting into the investments actually starts to move the dial a little bit, as opposed to it being insignificant because it's, a 10% return on $1,000 is $100. It's nothing. It starts to move the needle when you've got more money.
Yeah.
I think it's really the key message from my perspective is it's getting those habits nice and early that will set you up for life from a good money management perspective.
Yeah. And look, another easy way to kind of go into it and invest an amount of money without needing to put too much think work onto it or need to do too much with it I don't want to say any names, but there are some great apps out there where, you might spend $4.50 on a coffee and it'll round it up to $5. So it'll always round up the cents and invest that extra money.
Yeah.
So that you're not really feeling it, because for most people, whether you spend $4.50 or $5, you're not even thinking about it. You're just spending the money. So it's rounding up every transaction and utilizing a small amount to constantly put towards investments as well. So that's another easy way to do it without really having to think a lot about it.
So if you are that business and you did manage to catch that, we are taking sponsorships.
Yeah, exactly right.
So,
and next time we'll mention your name.
No, I like it. Absolutely. I guess one of the fundamental things when it comes to investing and wealth creation, compounding interest.
Yeah.
So once again, the thing that really works with compounding interest is time. So naturally, the earlier you start, the younger you start, the better off your compounding interest is going to be, because the time frame is longer.
Exactly right. And that's where you use the example of, what we were talking about earlier, where you might only be investing, $1,000, $2,000, but the next year when you've received or when you've reinvested that interest that you've gotten on your investment, you're reinvesting that again, and you're constantly doing that throughout your entire lifetime. And so as a result, the pool of money might not be as much in the early years, but as time goes on, it's very surprising to most people how much it can grow when you utilize, I think, the greatest thing that any investment or any investment market has, and that's time. That's its greatest asset, is time.
It's taken me 4 episodes this year to talk about the great man Warren Buffett, right?
Here we go.
Right? I've been holding back as long as I could, but so
no, you haven't.
I'm probably going to butcher this, but we're going to have to fact check it. But Warren Buffett didn't become a billionaire until his 50s.
Yeah.
So you talk about compounding, and then if you look at it, it just goes off the dial.
Yeah.
So that gives you an indication that if one of the world's most successful investor, just compounding,
exactly,
turned into a billionaire while he was, in his 50s, and now, I don't know, he's 91, 93, 91.
Is he 91?
Yeah.
Wow.
So there you go.
Looks pretty good for a 91-year-old, I must say.
He's got some good habits, I guess. I don't know.
Or good money to pay for healthcare,
maybe,
I guess.
Maybe that's what it is. Andrew, we might pivot into, I guess, property.
Yeah.
That's probably a good one, because that tends to form, I guess, a cornerstone of, I guess, wealth creation. There's debt management associated with it, so it's kind of like a forced saving or a forced investing as well too. Maybe we'll pivot into that around our thoughts with a younger person. What should they be thinking about when it comes to property and time, and when is the right time, and what are some of the benefits of doing it? I'm assuming you're going to say do it early, but what are some of the benefits of doing it early?
Yeah, I mean, look, when you consider someone that's purchasing a property maybe in their mid-20s as opposed to their mid-30s, the sooner that you get into it, it's not only the fact of, okay, the property market, maybe in the past has been doing 7% rates of return a year, maybe it'll only grow 5%, but it's not just in the fact that the property that you're purchasing in itself is cheaper than what you're spending is going to be less the sooner that you do it, because the assumption is that the market will continue increasing. So that's one aspect of it. But the other aspect of it is, let's say you purchase a property in your mid-20s instead of purchasing it in your mid-30s. Well, what happens is, by the time you've reached your mid-30s, you've actually paid down your debt, the value of the property has increased, you've got equity in your property, and so you can utilize that equity to either snowball into the next property, or you can utilize that equity in order to invest. You have a far greater reach in terms of what you can do with your investments. You have a far greater reach in terms of being able to snowball your investments. And to take the ad, compared the pair, you consider someone who doesn't actually purchase a property until their mid-30s. They're purchasing a property in their mid-30s, and then they're taking time to pay down the debt, build equity in order to be able to snowball into the next asset, versus someone who's done that in their mid-20s has probably either already acquired or is very close to acquiring their next property in their mid-30s. Yes, okay, you've gotten one property sooner than what you would have. But the other thing that you're also doing is now you have two properties where equity is growing, where your asset pool is also growing, and you can snowball both of those properties into, building additional assets. So it's also the factor of compound interest, and the sooner that you can start that snowball effect into moving on to the next one and the next one and the next one, the greater your odds of being financially successful are.
Yeah. We might put some numbers around this, but because essentially you're talking about a difference of a decade. So you've got a decade's worth of, I'd say, principal repayments, plus you've got a decade's worth of capital appreciation or growth. So we might just use some round numbers. Say the house and your debt, this doesn't happen in reality, is $500,000.
Yep.
Over a 10-year period, because it's loaded with interest at the start, maybe you reduce the principal by $100,000. So the debt level is worth, or the debt level now in this instance, 10 years on, is $400,000. And let's just assume for the sake of the exercise that the property has doubled in value over the 10-year period. So the $500,000 property has now gone to $1 million, and your debt level originally started at $500,000 and now it's gone down to $400,000. So that equity that you're talking about in that first decade, you've achieved, using this example, you've achieved $600,000 in equity.
Correct. And so, that 600,
it's not
you can't utilize all of it.
It's not an insignificant number.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely. And sometimes, a lot of the discussions that we're having with, younger clients and a lot of the things that we're discussing, provided that it obviously meets your cash flow requirements, provided that it's within your means to do so and all of that stuff, when you are talking about property, then you're starting to have conversations of, okay, do I wait? Do I save, build up a 20% deposit? Do I just pay mortgage insurance and have a 10% deposit?
Yep.
What are the implications of that? But you can start to formulate, those strategies and start to dictate your action based off your personal scenario earlier rather than later.
Yeah.
And you can start to plan for it and know what you need to achieve. So if you can, in, your mid to late 20s, if you can, build the property, not build the property, but build an asset, having a property in your portfolio. If you can have other investments in conjunction with property in your portfolio, if you can start salary sacrificing to super sooner, if you've got good cash flow management, earlier, and you do all of those things and you compound all of those things, doing it, even if you get to the same result, but you do it 10 years earlier, or you start at 10 years earlier, the result at the end of the day is going to be substantially more. And in the example that you're talking about a $600,000 difference. That's massive.
Yeah. So if you are using that example, your mid-30s, say you sell a property and you release all of that equity, you've got $600,000 to now pivot into, I imagine, upgrading your property potentially.
Upgrade your property, put it into investment, whatever it is. It's just, you've got options. So what I like to, sort of akin this to is you're building a base. Yeah. In the early years, all that you're doing is building a base of assets so that you've got options to be able to pivot, to change direction, to, achieve what you want to achieve at the end of the day. If you don't have that foundation, if you don't have that base, I'm sure, you can definitely, build it. It's just you're starting further back and your time frame to do it is shorter. Yep. That's all that it is.
Yeah. I think they're all really good tips and ideas for somebody who's starting out. And, I kind of wish that I had a podcast to listen to when I was younger and starting out. What are some of the things that we think about? And my mind's going to credit cards or the buy now, pay later, products that are on the market. And I'm making these too easy and laying them up. But from a really basic concept, the ability to spend more than you earn can't be understated.
Yeah.
Because that's really how you get yourself into trouble.
Yeah.
And it can be this perpetual cycle where, if you're doing it, you're kind of living, or you get into that habit where you're living paycheck to paycheck. And really credit, unfortunately, is the mechanism that gets you into that trap.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's not only, I mean, in many instances, and probably fortunately or unfortunately, in probably the majority of instances, when someone is getting themselves into trouble when it comes to that, a lot of the times it's self-inflicted. You're just spending more than you earn.
Yep.
But the other thing that having a strategy, a plan, and something that's there from a cash flow management side of things is, within that, you're going to have emergency funds. You're going to have unexpected expenses, whether it's, you or someone in your family that's suffering from a health perspective, whatever it is that impacts you that's outside of your control, you can't control it.
Yep.
Having an emergency fund there and not getting yourself into trouble can save you years of getting out of trouble.
Yep.
So some good planning over a short period of time can quite literally save you years of having to dig yourself out of a hole. So if you do have that emergency fund, if you do have the right, cash flow management so that you're not spending more than what you earn, then you're not going to get yourself into a position whereby you're starting not just from a zero position at a later point in time, but you're starting from a negative position that all of a sudden you need to do all of this work to just bring yourself up to even.
Yeah. Yep. And all of these things, I guess, in isolation can sound really basic and maybe like they're not going to move the dial enough. But if you talk about creating the right habits, and it's like, just compounding your habits and habit stacking, you do all of these and kind of add this layer on top of another, one layer on top of another, over a period of time, you'll get yourself to a stage where financially, I think you'd be at a really great position to have a great base. You've got multiple asset streams. You're in control of your money. You're not relying on paycheck to paycheck. You're not living off credit, and you're in a really good position to be able to grow your wealth and have a decent lifestyle. And the earlier you start, it's a no-brainer. The earlier you start, the better off I think you can be.
It's not even I think. I mean, the earlier that you start, it's the earlier that you start, the better off that you're going to be. It gives you options. It gives you flexibility, and it gives you the ability to, achieve what you want to achieve out of it.
Yeah.
And the more time frame that you give yourself, the more runway that you give yourself, the better off that you're going to be at the end of the day.
And then the dollar cost averaging with investments as well too.
Yeah.
Obviously that's a really powerful strategy as well too that we talk about and recommend all of the time. But that's just another piece of the puzzle as well too.
Exactly right. You continually buy assets. You buy assets at cheaper prices when markets are going down. You ride the wave of asset prices increasing when markets are going up, but you create a habit of investing on a regular basis, and as a result you're reducing your risk. But and that's another massive aspect of it.
Yeah.
The longer the time frame, the less risk that you're taking in terms of your investment journey, because your assets are invested for longer. You're giving them even more time to work and do what they need to do for you.
Well said, well summarised, and I reckon we leave it there. Our cleaning crew is starting to work their magic in the office, so before it gets too noisy, we should wrap that one up. Yeah.
Well, thanks again for listening and tuning in to the podcast, Billy. Thanks again for another great podcast. Like and subscribe if you've enjoyed our content, and we look forward to catching you on the next one.
Thank you. Share it with your mates. Thanks for listening today. If you have any questions on what we talked about or would like to have a chat about your money journey, visit us at 360fs.com.au.
Just a reminder to our listeners that the information contained in this podcast is general in nature and it is not intended as personal recommendations for the audience. Please consider whether the information suits your circumstances before acting on it. This information is provided by Billy Amiridis and Andrew Nicolaou of 360 Financial Strategists Pty Ltd, authorized representatives and credit representatives of AMP Financial Planning.